Hello YouTube, it's Monday, it's President's Day. I am going to go to, my first stop today will be the Boothill Graveyard. So I don't exactly remember where it's at, but I know it's somewhere near or past Family Dollar. I want to take the e-bike. If I get out there and it's at the bottom of the hill, I'll probably come back and get the car. If you want to see this, great. Feel free to watch. If you don't want to watch this, rather than leaving stupid comments because you hate my videos, go to your safe space. There's other channels out there that can be your happy, safe place with unicorns and rainbows for you. And you can go watch those videos. Otherwise, come join me. So the Boothill Cemetery, Boothill Graveyard, was the original tombstone cemetery from 1878 to 1884. So they put that other cemetery in where we saw in one of my earlier videos. It was originally known as the Old Cemetery. It laid for years in neglect, and much of the old cemetery had gone back to nature. Years of research and hard work by a lot of people, several people in the town, older people especially, helped to preserve the main part of the cemetery. And they remade a lot of the markers, figuring out who they could figure out, you know. So the 256 graves in here, 93 of them are just going to probably say unknown or something, not have anything on them. And they gave me a list of information on each person. This is Rodriguez Petron, 1882. I have no info on him. This is unknown, 1882. This guy here, or woman, or whatever it is, it was a guy, found at the bottom of a 60-foot shaft in the Minute Mine, abandoned mine. He was well dressed, indicating he was not a miner. No identification of any kind. Back then they didn't have driver's license, birth certificates, fingerprint machines, dental records. Pat Byrne died of pneumonia, and there's another unknown next to Pat Byrne. Some of these guys are buried in their boots next to their wives. Eva Waters, 3 months old. Scarlet fever. Florentino was murdered in 1882. They called him Indian Charlie. He was found dead with several bullet wounds in his body. Next to there we have Van Helton, murdered in 1879. He was beaten in the face with a stone until he died. Trouble was over his mining claim, which he had not recorded. Tom Waters was shot in 1880. He was the father of Eva Waters, and likely the T.J. Waters who was shot over the color of his shirt. Chaz Helm, 1882, shot by William McCauley, 2 hot-tempered ranchers who disagreed over the best way to drive cattle, fast or slow. And we had Jonathan Barton, 1881. The Halderman brothers, William and Thomas, hanged November 16th, 1900. Thomas Gregory, 1882. Gregory, 1882, small son of Thomas Gregory, who died of meningitis. Then Halo Lucero, killed by the Indians in 1882. Peter Smith, native of Germany, killed in 1882 at age 23. struck on the back of his head with a poker, killed by Thomas Donald or Doland during a fight. This is Mrs. H.C. Smith, 82, then Jasper Vaughn, shot in 1882. Bunch of unknowns. Dan Kelly, killed in 1884. Bill Delaney, Tex Howard, Red Sample, and Dan Dowd. Legally hung or hanged on March 8, 1884. These men were found guilty of killing several people during a robbery of a store in Bisbee. It's known for the Bisbee Massacre. They are all hanged on one scaffold in the courthouse yard. Jerry Sullivan, 1881. Dick Toby, shot by Sheriff Behan. William Claiborne, shot by Frank Leslie in 1882. He was drinking, sought to settle a real or finance wrong with Leslie. This took place in the front of the Oriental Saloon where Leslie tended bar. Margarita, stabbed by Gold Dollar. Two dance hall girls quarreling over a man, and Gold Dollar won. A.Z. Loach, 1882. Joe's Wally Wetzel, who was stoned to death by Apaches. His friends were not far away, and it was thought the Indians wanted to avoid attracting their attention by shooting them. Thomas Morgan, 1882. Frank Bull, 1880. Right here. His horse became frightened, threw him off. This caused a rifle to discharge and badly injure his knee. He laid in camp for several weeks without medical attention. When friends took him to a doctor for amputation, it was too late. This is information given by his daughter. John Hicks, 1879. Hicks was shot by Jeremiah McCormick, superintendent of the Lucky Cuss Mine, the saloon brawl. Dennis Cassidy, killed in 1879. James Hickey, shot by William Claiborne, 1881. He was shot in the left temple by Claiborne for his over-insistence that they drink together. Billy Clinton, Tom McLaury, and Frank McLaury, all killed. Murdered in the streets of Tombstone. 1881, tragic results of the OK Corral battle, which took place between the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday and the Cowboys. Three men were killed and 3 were wounded. Billy Clinton again. Oh, that was Old Man Clinton. Old Man Clinton's over here. A Confederate veteran, 1861 to 1864, killed August 1881, with several other men. Was ambushed on a cattle drive by Mexicans. All but 1 man were killed. John Beather, he was hung in 1881. 2 cowboys drowned, that's all they know. John King, suicide, 1881. Suicide by strychnine. Strychnine? Not sure what that is. Ernest Brodeen's, murdered in 1882, a minor native of Germany, was found dead in his cabin with 4 bullet wounds in his body. Suspected of the killing was his partner, with whom he had been quarreling and who had now disappeared. Teamster, 1881, killed by Apaches. J.D. McDermott, 1882. His spinal column was fractured when his horse fell with him while crossing the San Pedro River. Unknown. Judge C. Lindsay, Lynn Lee, 1882. Charles Lindsay, in his younger years, was one of the blessed members of the bar in California. His health was impaired by overwork, and he died in Tombstone in September 1882. John Martin, killed in 1882. He was killed while working in the Huachaca water line. Test pipe was unplugged and a blast of water hurled a jack against his chest. He was a native of England. Rook was shot by Chinaman. This occurred in front of the the Apple store on Fremont Street. For years, the Wagon Wheel Inn. Lately, the Bella Union. Freddie Fuss, 1882, a small boy who died from drinking stagnant or poisoned mine water. Darrell Brown, proprietress of a hotel, and died of natural causes. Information from Ben's Billings was 1886. Mrs. Southey was 1881. John Heath, taken from county jail and lynched by a Bisbee mob. February 22nd, 1884, he was called the leader of the 5 men who were legally hung and was said to have planned the robbery. He was hanged from a telegraph pole short distance west of the courthouse. This is Mrs. Stump here, 1884. She died in childbirth from an overdose of chloroform given to her by the doctor. This information given by her family. Frank Sorrow shot over his mining claim. That will be right here. Bobby Jackson, 1882. Frank Hart, 1882. Malcolm Campbell, 1882. A commonly devout Christian man who died of pneumonia. Mrs. R.B. Campbell, 1882. Wife of restaurant owner of that name. She died very suddenly of severe stomach cramps and spasms. Suspected poisoning. Pat Lynch, 1883. Hayes, that's all it says. H.B. Cook, 1882. C.O. Ridgway. His team of horses and wagon were found on a road heading out of Tombstone. Investigation showed old man Ridgway to be lying dead in the wagon. Hilly Hickson, 1882, was said that death never took a holiday in Tombstone on this day. Hilly, a schoolboy, he fell while making on a pair of stilts and injured his back. He seemed only slightly injured, but the next morning he died suddenly with a spasm. W.C. Bennett, 1882, native of England. He died of heart trouble and was buried by the Knights of Pythias Lodge. I think that's like the equivalent of Freemasons. John Gibson, 1881, driver for Nadeau's ore teams, fell from a wagon and his skull was crushed when a wheel of a heavy wagon ran over his head. May Doody, diphtheria, from an old resident, 1881. Thomas Cohen, 11 months, diphtheria. John Mackenzie, 1881. Miles Sweeney, 1880, murdered. Sure is a beautiful view from here. William Summers, 1882, was a teamster for James Carr and was found dead from a blow on the back which broke 2 ribs and ruptured the liver. Meade, 1881. There's some in this row that are really interesting. So if you're getting really bored, don't leave yet. Sudden death. Meade was a blacksmith for Sandy Bob's stables. Was found dead early one morning in the rear seat of one of the coaches. M.E. Kellogg died a natural death in 1882. What a name this guy has. Seymour Dye. Killed by Indians, 1882. 35 years old. Seymour Dye and Harry Curry were wood cutters. This day they were bringing a load of hay when they were shot by Indians who, after their victims had fallen from the wagon, dragged them for 150 feet. All right, here's George Johnson. George Johnson was hanged by mistake in 1882. He bought a stolen horse unknowingly. They hung him because of him owning a stolen horse. The wreaths with the blue bows are from the police association. John Gillespie, who was one of the officers sent to arrest Billy Grounds and Zwing Hunt, suspected killers of M.R. Pill. He died instantly when Hunt shot him in the head. M.R. Pill, 1882. A young mining engineer who was shot one night in his office as he worked late. Suspicion fell on Zwing Hunt and Billy Grounds. Billy Kinsman, 1883. He was shot by a woman much older than he, who was jealous and in love with him. Information given by his niece. George Fryer, 1881. William Alexander, killed in a blast in 1880. Red River Tom, no date, shot by Ormsby. Alfred Packrell, 1882. English. He was a young miner, aged 24, who died from inflammation of the bowels. Boy, I feel that. Duran, shot by Slaughter. Duran was shot when Slaughter sought to arrest him for his part in a train robbery. Ben Scott, Al Bennett. Teamsters ambushed by Indians in 1883. Hans Christensen, 1891. Christina B. Christensen, 1892. Della Williams, somewhere down here. Della Williams committed suicide. She was the African-American proprietress of a lodging house on Toughnut Street. Suicide by taking arsenic. 06. M. Lopez is the last one there, 1880. Died of being in a closed room, and he died from the charcoal fumes. Thomas Fitzu, 1882. He was found dead one morning in the water closet back of Mrs. King's lodging house on Toughnut Street where he roomed. Kansas kid killed in a stampede. Daniel Oyer drowned in 1881. Harry Curry, killed by Indians, with Seymour died while hauling hay. Lester Moore. Here lies Lester Moore. 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more. Moore was a Wells Fargo agent at NACO and had a dispute with a man over a package. Both died. Information from an old resident. Will DeLong, killed while playing cards in 1883. M. McCartney, shot miner who was shot by a man named Poplin in 1882. Ralph Kohler, 1882. Latham Kohler, 1884. Helen Tina Kohler, 1882. And here's Marshall White. Fred White, shot by Curly Bill, 1880. He was accidentally shot as he started to take Curly Bill's gun. This took place on the lot where the Birdcage Theater now stands. Hall. Douglas Lilly, killed 1881, was a driver for Sycamore Water Company. He was thrown from the wagon, trampled by the horses, and died instantly when the wagon ran over his head. Rosenthal, 1881. Charlie Storms, shot by Luke Short, 1880. Simon Constantine, killed in 1882. He and Thomas Kearney blown up by a blast. William Carpenter, 1881. This grave was located by his son, who said his father had been the first Baptist minister in Tombstone. Death caused by nephritis. Van Olney, shot by Jack Chacon. Sorry about these names, guys. Joseph Ziegler, 27, was shot one night through the left breast and lived only a few minutes. He and Ed Williams, who shot him, were miners and had been quarreling while working that day. The murder took place behind the old ice house near the corner of Toughnut and 5th Streets. Alfred Cantrell, who was shot in 1881. Old man Cantrell was murdered by a man named Brown, who later hanged for his crime. M. McAllister, 1882. Happy Jack. He suffered a lung injury when he was shot in a fight over a piece of land. He was sent to Tombstone to recover, but died in the old injury. Minnie Dow, or Minnie Doe, 1881. Indian Bill. It's all the info we have on him is Indian Bill. Mrs. John Clum, Mary, 1880. Riley, Jim Riley, is over here, who's murdered in 1881. Three-Finger Jack Dunlap, shot by Jeff Milton. Dunlap, one of a band of train robbers, attempted to rob an express car which Milton guarded. He was critically wounded and his friend left him to die. He was found and brought to Tombstone, where he lived long enough to inform his friends. Dutch Annie, sometimes called the Queen of the Red Light District, died in 1883. Peter Crawley, killed in 1881. Joseph Thomas, 1881, he was shot. He was a teamster for Scherer's lumber wagons and was found with 4 bullet wounds to his body. Indian Joe, another teamster who believed to have killed him, as both teams were found abandoned on a roadside. James Tolley was killed in 1881. Tolley was a miner employed by the Grand Central Mining Company to avoid being crushed as the cage shot upward toward the timbers overhead. Tolley jumped and fell 250 feet to the bottom of the shaft. Colleen, shot by Frank Leslie in 1880, results of a disagreement over Colleen's wife. Leslie later married the widow. Wherever that, there it is, right there. Making an enemy. Shot in 1882. Glenn Will, arrived COD 1953. Glenn Will, also known as Bronco Bill, wanted to visit Tombstone one last time. Upon his death in 1953, Glenn's son sent his ashes to Edna Landing, president of the Chamber of Commerce. He arrived COD at $1.92. Mrs. Landon arranged his burial in Boothill on March 27, 1953. John Gibbon, 1882. With Melvina Lopez, he climbed the golden stairs on the flumes from a pan of charcoal. Cowboy Bill King, shot by Bert Elverd. John Wickstrom, 1882. A Swede who was killed when a well he was digging caved in. Information from an old resident. And there's one more on this road, 6-shooter Jim, shot by Bert Elverd in 1885. Johnny Wilson, shot by King. 2 gunmen's decision of the fastest way to draw ended here. Hancock, shot in 1879, shot by John Ringo when he made a disparaging remark about some woman. Geo Atkins, 1888. The Square, killed in 1881. G. Renaco, killed in 1882. Broncho Charlie, shot by Ormsby. Guadalupe Robles, who gave shelter to some robbers, one of whom was his brother, was shot when the officers came to arrest him. George Whitzer, 1882. A miner who was killed when a cable broke, hurling the cage to the bottom of the shaft. James McMartin, 1881, rapid consumption. Jack King, shot by Cherokee Hall. William Whitehall, 1878. Steve Brammer, 1882. Mrs. Pring, suicide, 1881, while her husband was away trying to sell mining shares. Mrs. Ping, who lived on Toughnut Street, took a large dose of hydrate chloral. S. McFarland, 1882. Jay Gardner, shot in 1882. He was shot by Kellogg. 2 saloon men were also indicted for this killing. Brady brothers. These boys were drowned while swimming in the San Pedro River. One died in a vain attempt to save his brother, ages 11 and 12. George Russell, 1882. An efficient foreman of the Epitaph who died while being operated on for cancer in the stomach. Fouquet. He owned a grocery store here and died from plomaine poisoning. Archie McBride, 1882, proprietor of the Grand Hotel until he died of May of consumption. Johnny Blair, the last one there, died of smallpox, and a cowboy threw a rope around his feet, dragged him to his grave. Well, I don't know where this left off, but I can't find any of these. Or these. I guess you could probably scan that and find out more. They're not, I mean, it's all empty. So I don't know what to say. And I think I lost a lot of the recording. There's Emmett Crook there. 1884, 1946. Well, that would kind of suck. I'm no cactus expert, but I know a prick when I see one.